I never thought I'd be that girl who ends up back in her parents' house at 32, but here I am in Vegas, scrolling through old photos and trying to figure out where it all went wrong. I guess I should start from the beginning, back when I thought I'd finally found my person. I met Eddie at O'Malley's on a random Thursday night. My friend Brittany dragged me out after another trash date from some dating app, saying I needed to meet real men in the real world, whatever that means. But the moment I saw him at the bar, I got it. He wasn't like the usual guys I dated. You know, the ones who work in sales and spend half their paycheck on protein powder. Eddie was different. He owned this auto repair shop that basically everyone in the area went to. Not just like a regular mechanic shop. He had built this whole reputation for being the only person people trusted with their fancy cars. The way he talked about engines and restoration projects, you could tell he actually cared about the work, not just the money. And okay, maybe I didn't understand half of what he was saying that first night, but his passion was kinda hot. But what really got me was how he didn't play any games. When he asked for my number, he actually called instead of texting. Called. Who does that anymore? And he straight up told me he liked me and wanted to take me to dinner. No hanging out or let's see where this goes garbage. Just direct, honest interest. The first few months were like something out of those movies Brittany's always watching on Hallmark. Eddie would surprise me at work with lunch, not because of some special occasion, but just because he was thinking about me. He remembered little things I mentioned in passing, like my obsession with those special edition Oreos, and would grab them whenever he saw them. And let me tell you, the sex? Mind-blowing. Like, make you forget your own name. Good. I should have known it was too perfect. The cracks started showing up around month 4, but I was too caught up in the fantasy to really see them. Eddie was great with money, had to be to build his business from nothing. Me, not so much. I mean, I worked as a bank teller, so you'd think I'd be good with finances, but that just meant I knew exactly how to juggle my credit cards. I had this thing about keeping up appearances. When you're dating a successful business owner, you can't just wear the same outfit twice in Instagram photos, you know? So maybe I spent a little more than I should have on clothes and bags and shoes, but they were investments. That's what I kept telling myself. Every time I swiped my card at Nordstrom or splurged on a weekend trip to LA, I'd justify it as building my image or self-care. Eddie didn't know about most of it at first. I got pretty good at hiding shopping bags in my car or having things delivered to Brittany's place. When he proposed at 8 months, with this gorgeous ring he'd apparently been saving for, I convinced myself the spending would stop. New marriage, new me, right? Looking back, I can see why he fell for me despite the red flags. I was fun, spontaneous, always up for an adventure. While he spent his weekends working on cars, I was planning dinner parties and making our life look Instagram perfect. He probably thought he needed someone like me to balance out his serious side. And maybe I thought I needed someone like him to finally get my act together. The proposal happened at this vintage car show he was featured in. He'd restored this beautiful 1967 Mustang and somehow worked it into this whole romantic moment. Everyone was cheering, taking pictures, and I felt like the luckiest girl in the world. He'd even gotten my ring size from Brittany, something I'd casually mentioned to her months ago after trying on her engagement ring. But here's the thing about rushing into marriage. You think love will fix everything. You think those little habits that bug you will magically disappear once you say, I do. Or worse, you think you can change the other person to fit your ideal vision. I thought marriage would make Eddie more spontaneous, more willing to splurge on the finer things. He probably thought it would make me more responsible with money. We were both wrong. The weekend before the wedding, I maxed out another credit card on my dress alterations and extra decorations. The coordinator kept showing me all these must-have extras, the premium open bar, the fancy chair covers, the artistic photographer. How could I say no? This was my only wedding, or so I thought, and everyone's eyes would be on us. Eddie had given me a budget, but I went over it by, well, a lot. I told myself I'd figure it out later. That's always been my problem. Living for the now and dealing with consequences later. But sitting here in my old bedroom, surrounded by shopping bags I can't return and a closet full of clothes I can't afford, later has finally caught up with me. And that's not even the worst part of how I screwed everything up. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back then, I was still the blushing bride, and Eddie was still looking at me like I hung the moon. If only we'd known what was coming. The first signs of trouble started literally on our honeymoon. I'd booked this gorgeous suite in Cabo, way outside our agreed budget, but come on, it's your honeymoon. You're supposed to go all out. Eddie found the credit card statement in our hotel room and just stared at it for what felt like forever. He didn't yell. Sometimes I wish he had. Instead, he got all quiet and asked if we could discuss our financial goals when we got home. Like we were in some business meeting, not celebrating our marriage. That set the tone for our first year. Everything became about budgets and saving and financial responsibility. He'd check our joint account literally every day, questioning every purchase like he was some kind of personal auditor. Do you really need another pair of heels? Didn't you just buy new makeup last week? It was exhausting. But it wasn't just the money thing that I could have handled, maybe. It was how he started getting weird about everything I wore or did. Like I'd put on a cute dress for girls' night, and he'd make these little comments. That's a bit short for a married woman, don't you think? Or, maybe you should wear a cardigan over that. At first, I thought it was kind of sweet, you know? Like he was being protective. But it got worse. Every time we went out together, I'd catch him watching other guys who looked my way. He tried to hide it, but I could see his jaw clench, his whole body tense up. If some guy at a restaurant or bar smiled at me, Eddie would suddenly need to put his arm around me or kiss me, marking his territory like some animal. It was flattering for about 5 minutes, then it just got annoying. I started noticing how he'd coincidentally show up at places when I was out with friends. He'd make excuses. Oh, I was just picking up parts from the supplier nearby. Or I thought I'd surprise you with dinner. But I'm not stupid. He was checking up on me, making sure I was really where I said I was. One night, I was out with Brittany and some girls from work, and he called 5 times. 5. When I finally answered, he said he was worried because he'd driven by the restaurant we were supposed to be at and didn't see my car. Turns out we'd moved to a different place because the first one was too crowded. He acted like I'd committed some major crime by not updating him on our location change. That's when I started getting sneaky. I'd hide new clothes in my trunk or have packages delivered to work. I opened a separate credit card he didn't know about. Just for emergencies, I told myself. But really, it was about having something that was just mine, something he couldn't control. The real kicker came when he installed this budgeting app on both our phones. Said it would help us stay on track. What he meant was it would help him track every penny I spent. I had to get creative after that, taking out cash back at the grocery store or borrowing money from Brittany to buy things. Sometimes I'd return stuff just to have spending money he couldn't trace. It's not like I was doing anything wrong. I just wanted to look good, to feel good about myself. Is that such a crime? Every time I bought something new, it was because I needed it. That designer bag? Networking essential. You can't show up to work events with some cheap purse. The new dresses? Professional image is important when you work at a bank. But try explaining that to someone who thinks wearing the same 5 t-shirts and jeans is perfectly fine. The more he tried to control everything, the more I pushed back. If he made a comment about my dress being too revealing, I'd accidentally unbutton it 1 more button. If he got weird about me posting selfies, I'd post 3 more. It became this whole game, him trying to box me in, me finding new ways to break out. Our friends started noticing the tension. At barbecues or dinner parties, Eddie would hover around me like some kind of bodyguard. He'd monitor my drinks, give me these looks if I laughed too loud or danced too close to someone else. It was embarrassing. Here I was, trying to be the fun, social butterfly everyone loved, and he was turning me into this caged bird. I started venting to Brittany about everything. She'd been through a divorce herself, so she got it. She's the one who pointed out how controlling Eddie was being. It's financial abuse, she'd say, showing me these articles about toxic relationships. I wasn't sure about that at first. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Why else would he care so much about every little purchase? Why else would he need to know where I was every second of every day? The breaking point was building up slowly, but I couldn't see it then. All I knew was that I was suffocating. Every morning, I'd wake up and put on this perfect wife act, fixing his breakfast, kissing him goodbye, playing along with his budget talks. But inside, I was screaming. I wanted to be me again. The fun, spontaneous girl he fell in love with, not this supervised, monitored version of myself. Looking back, I can see we were both afraid of losing something. He was terrified of losing control, of other men taking what was his. I was scared of losing myself, of becoming just another boring married woman who lets her husband decide everything. But neither of us could say that out loud. Instead, we just kept pushing each other's buttons, building up to that night that changed everything. Little did I know, I was about to push the biggest button of all. The month before everything fell apart, I started playing this dangerous game. Whenever Eddie got controlling about my outfits, I'd go even more over the top. He'd say my skirt was too short, I'd order an even shorter one. He'd complain about a low-cut top, I'd unbutton one more button just to watch him squirm. It was childish, looking back, but I felt so powerful watching him try to keep his cool in public. I got this gorgeous red dress from Revolve, the kind that makes every head turn when you walk in a room. Cost nearly $1,000, but I used my secret credit card so Eddie wouldn't know. I wore it to his friend Mark's birthday dinner, knowing it would drive him crazy. The whole night, I could feel Eddie's eyes on me, watching every guy who looked my way. And trust me, there were plenty. Mark's wife Sarah kept giving me these looks, like she knew exactly what I was doing. She'd been married to Mark for 10 years, and dressed like she was going to a PTA meeting. I refused to become that, some boring wife who loses herself in marriage. Every time Eddie tensed up when a waiter smiled at me or Mark's single friend complimented my dress, I felt this weird satisfaction. But Eddie was getting worse with his controlling behavior. He started showing up at my lunch breaks spontaneously with food. Sweet, right? Except I knew he was really checking if I was actually at work and not shopping. He'd casually mention things about my friends, stuff he could only know from monitoring my social media activity. Once, he even questioned a coffee charge on our joint account because it was at an unusual time and location. I started feeling like I couldn't breathe. Every purchase, every movement, every social media post was under surveillance. He'd created this shared calendar we were supposed to use to better coordinate our schedules. But really, it was just another way to track me. If I went somewhere that wasn't on the calendar, I'd get 20 questions about where I'd been and who I was with. The money stuff got even worse. He'd spend thousands on car parts for his shop without blinking an eye, but God forbid I buy a new pair of shoes. "We need to save for our future," he'd say, like my happiness in the present didn't matter at all. I started hiding shopping bags in my trunk, then sneaking them into the house when he was working late at the shop. My secret credit card was almost maxed out, but I couldn't stop. Shopping was the only thing that made me feel in control anymore. One night, I overheard him on the phone with his divorced friend Tony, talking about marriage counseling and financial advisors. Can you believe it? He was discussing our private business with other people, like I was some problem that needed fixing. That's when I really started getting mad. Who was he to act like I was the one with issues? He was the one who couldn't handle having an attractive wife, who got jealous every time another man looked my way. I started noticing how he'd position himself between me and other men at parties, how he'd suddenly need to touch me or kiss me whenever another guy joined our conversation. It was like he was marking his territory, proving something to himself. The funny thing is, I'd never even thought about cheating on him. But his behavior started making me wonder, why was he so insecure? What did he think I was capable of? Brittany said I should start documenting everything. The controlling behavior, the financial restrictions, the way he monitored my movements. Build your case, she said, like she knew where this was heading. I started keeping screenshots of his text messages questioning my whereabouts, photos of him showing up unexpectedly at my workout classes, notes about every time he made comments about my clothes or makeup. The week before everything exploded, I maxed out another credit card buying this designer wardrobe I'd been eyeing. I kept everything in my car, planning to slowly bring pieces into the house so he wouldn't notice. It was like I was living this double life. Perfect, obedient wife at home, secret rebel everywhere else. The guilt was there, sure, but it felt good to have something that was just mine. Something he couldn't control. Every time he made a comment about my appearance or questioned a purchase, I added it to my mental list of grievances. I started fantasizing about throwing it all in his face someday, showing him how his controlling behavior had pushed me to this point. I wanted him to feel as trapped and scrutinized as I did. Looking back, maybe we were both playing games we couldn't win. He was trying to control everything because he was afraid of losing me. And I was rebelling against that control because I was afraid of losing myself. But neither of us could see that then. We were too caught up in this toxic dance of control and defiance, pushing each other closer and closer to the edge. That Friday night at dinner with our friends, I had no idea I was about to push us right over that edge. But something in me was ready for it, ready to explode, ready to hurt him like he'd been hurting me. I just didn't realize how much I'd end up hurting myself in the process. I wore that red dress again to Friday night dinner. You know, the one that made Eddie's jaw clench every time I wore it. Our regular dinner crew was there. Mark and Sarah, Tony and his new girlfriend, and a few other couples from Eddie's car scene. We were at this trendy steakhouse downtown, the kind with mood lighting and overpriced everything. The tension started before we even got to the restaurant. Eddie saw me coming down the stairs in that dress and just stared. Not the good kind of stare. Really, Alexis, that dress again? Like he was my father or something. I pretended not to hear him and took extra time doing my makeup, making us 15 minutes late. I knew it would bug him. He's always so anal about being on time. At dinner, I made sure to sit where everyone could see me, not tucked away in a corner like Eddie wanted. I ordered the most expensive wine on the menu, watching his face tighten as I told the waiter to keep it coming. Every time he tried to give me that slow down look, I'd take another sip while maintaining eye contact. Childish? Maybe, but I was so tired of his controlling everything. The breaking point came when I was taking selfies with Sarah and Tony's girlfriend. Just innocent photos, you know? But Eddie leaned over and whispered, "Maybe take those down. Your dress is riding up too high." Right there, in front of everyone. I saw Sarah trying not to react, but Tony's girlfriend definitely heard. She gave me this sympathetic look that made my blood boil. That's when I snapped. Maybe it was the wine, maybe it was months of built-up resentment, but something in me just broke. "You know what your problem is, Eddie?" I said it loud enough for the whole table to hear. "You're so obsessed with controlling me because you're actually turned on by other men wanting me." The table went dead silent. Sarah nearly choked on her wine. I knew I should stop, but the words just kept coming. "That's right, everyone. My husband's a cuck. He probably gets off on imagining other guys with me. That's why he's so obsessed with what I wear and who I talk to." Mark let out this nervous laugh before his wife elbowed him. Tony suddenly became very interested in his steak, but Eddie? Eddie just sat there, his face completely blank except for this muscle twitching in his jaw. It was terrifying and satisfying at the same time. In fact, I continued, riding this wave of drunk courage. Maybe that's why he follows me around and monitors everything I do. Getting a little thrill out of it, aren't you, baby? I expected him to explode, to cause a scene. Instead, he just looked at me with these cold, dead eyes and said in the quietest voice, "We're done here." Not yelling, not angry, just final. Like he was declaring the end of something bigger than just dinner. The drive home was silent. Not the usual tense silence we'd gotten used to, but something different. Something final. I kept waiting for him to yell, to fight back, to give me something I could use to justify my behavior. But he just drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, while I fought back tears I didn't even understand. I'd succeeded in hurting him, really hurting him. I could see it in the way his shoulders were set, in how he wouldn't even look at me. For the first time, I felt this cold pit in my stomach, like maybe I'd gone too far. But I couldn't take it back now. Pride or stubbornness or just plain stupidity kept me silent. When we got home, he walked straight to his home office and shut the door. I heard him making a phone call, his voice too low for me to make out the words. I stood in our kitchen, still in that stupid red dress, feeling like my whole world was about to come crashing down. I didn't know it then, but that call would be the beginning of the end. I thought maybe if I went to bed, we'd wake up tomorrow and pretend it never happened. That's how we usually handled our fights, sweep them under the rug and move on. But something told me this time was different. This time I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. As I lay in our bed alone that night, I could hear him moving around downstairs. What I didn't know was that he was gathering evidence. Evidence that would destroy the narrative I'd been building about our marriage. Evidence that would show everyone exactly who had been the problem all along. I wore that red dress again to Friday night dinner. You know, the one that made Eddie's jaw clench every time I wore it. Our regular dinner crew was there, Mark and Sarah, Tony and his new girlfriend, and a few other couples from Eddie's car scene. We were at this trendy steakhouse downtown, the kind with mood lighting and overpriced everything. The tension started before we even got to the restaurant. Eddie saw me coming down the stairs in that dress and just stared. Not the good kind of stare. Really, Alexis? That dress again? Like he was my father or something. I pretended not to hear him and took extra time doing my makeup, making us 15 minutes late. I knew it would bug him. He's always so anal about being on time. At dinner, I made sure to sit where everyone could see me, not tucked away in a corner like Eddie wanted. I ordered the most expensive wine on the menu, watching his face tighten as I told the waiter to keep it coming. Every time he tried to give me that slow-down look, I'd take another sip while maintaining eye contact. Childish? Maybe, but I was so tired of his controlling everything. The breaking point came when I was taking selfies with Sarah and Tony's girlfriend. Just innocent photos, you know? But Eddie leaned over and whispered, "Maybe take those down. Your dress is riding up too high." Right there, in front of everyone. I saw Sarah trying not to react, but Tony's girlfriend definitely heard. She gave me this sympathetic look that made my blood boil. That's when I snapped. Maybe it was the wine, maybe it was months of built-up resentment, but something in me just broke. "You know what your problem is, Eddie?" I said it loud enough for the whole table to hear. "You're so obsessed with controlling me because you're actually turned on by other men wanting me." The table went dead silent. Sarah nearly choked on her wine. I knew I should stop, but the words just kept coming. "That's right, everyone. My husband's a cuck, and he probably gets off on imagining other guys with me. That's why he's so obsessed with what I wear and who I talk to." Mark let out this nervous laugh before his wife elbowed him. Tony suddenly became very interested in his steak. "But Eddie?" Eddie just sat there, his face completely blank, except for this muscle twitching in his jaw. It was terrifying and satisfying at the same time. "In fact," I continued, riding this wave of drunk courage, "maybe that's why he follows me around and monitors everything I do. Getting a little thrill out of it, aren't you, baby?" I expected him to explode, to cause a scene. Instead, he just looked at me with these cold, dead eyes and said in the quietest voice, "We're done here." Not yelling, not angry, just final. Like he was declaring the end of something bigger than just dinner. The drive home was silent. Not the usual tense silence we'd gotten used to, but something different. Something final. I kept waiting for him to yell, to fight back, to give me something I could use to justify my behavior. But he just drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, while I fought back tears I didn't even understand. I'd succeeded in hurting him. Really hurting him. I could see it in the way his shoulders were set, and how he wouldn't even look at me. For the first time, I felt this cold pit in my stomach, like maybe I'd gone too far, but I couldn't take it back now. Pride or stubbornness, or just plain stupidity, kept me silent. When we got home, I thought maybe if I apologized, blamed it on the wine, we could move past this like we always did. But before I could say anything, Eddie went straight to his office and shut the door. I could hear him on the phone, talking in that low, controlled voice that scared me more than any yelling could. I poured myself another glass of wine, trying to steady my nerves, trying to convince myself I was the wrong party here. After all, he was the one who'd been controlling and possessive. He was the one who couldn't handle having a hot wife. right? Wrong, so wrong. But I wouldn't realize just how wrong until later that night, when everything I'd built would come crashing down around me. I was in the kitchen, still in that red dress, when Eddie finally came out of his office. He had his phone in his hand, and something about the way he was holding it made me nervous. But I was still drunk enough to be bold. "Come to apologize for embarrassing me at dinner?" I said, taking another sip of wine. The words came out slurred, but I didn't care. "No, Alexis. I think it's time we had an honest conversation." His voice was so calm it was unsettling. "Let's talk about who's really been embarrassing who." That's when I noticed he'd placed his phone on the counter, screen up. I didn't know it then, but he was recording everything. I wish I'd kept my mouth shut, but the wine and anger made me reckless. "Oh, you want honest? Fine. Let's talk about how you can't handle having an attractive wife, how you get all twitchy every time another man looks at me." "It's pathetic, Eddie. You know that's why guys at the shop bring their cars to you, just to get a look at me when I stop by." He didn't react like I expected. Instead, he pulled out some papers from behind his back. Bank statements, credit card bills, all my secret shopping, laid out in black and white. "You want to talk about pathetic, Alexis? Let's talk about how you've been stealing from our house down payment fund to buy clothes you hide in your car. Let's talk about the 3 maxed-out credit cards you opened behind my back." I felt my face get hot. That's my money, too. And maybe if you weren't so controlling with every penny. "Controlling?" He cut me off, his voice still eerily calm. "You mean like setting a budget so we could buy a house? Like trying to build a future while you're busy building a wall of lies?" "Don't act all high and mighty," I snapped. "You're the one who follows me around like some creepy stalker. Showing up at my lunch breaks, monitoring my social media, acting like I'm your property instead of your wife. You know what that makes you look like? Insecure. Weak. No wonder I have to what?" His eyes were boring into me now. "Have to lie? Have to manipulate? Have to humiliate me in front of our friends?" "They laughed, didn't they?" I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. "Because they know it's true. Deep down you get off on other men wanting me. That's why you make such a show of being possessive. You're probably imagining it right now. All those guys at dinner undressing me with their eyes while you just sat there, watching." I saw something break in his eyes then. Not anger, something worse. Disappointment, disgust. "Do you even hear yourself right now? Do you realize what you're doing?" "What I'm doing is being honest. You want to control everything about me. How I dress, how I act, what I spend. You probably check my location 20 times a day. Is that what turns you on, Eddie? Keeping your hot wife on a leash while secretly fantasizing about..." "Stop." His voice was like ice. "Just stop. You know what's really pathetic? How you're trying to twist this around. Make me the bad guy because I cared enough to try to build a future with you. Because I noticed when you started lying, started hiding things, started trying to get attention from other men just to hurt me." I laughed, but it sounded hollow even to me. "Oh, please, like you're so perfect? You've been emotionally abusing me this whole time. Controlling my money, monitoring my movements, isolating me from my friends. Is that what you're gonna tell people?" He picked up his phone, and suddenly I realized he'd been recording this whole conversation. Because I think the evidence tells a different story. The credit card statements, the hidden shopping, this conversation right here, it all shows exactly who's been doing the manipulating. I felt the blood drain from my face. "You can't record me without my permission. That's..." "Actually, in Nevada, I can. One-party consent state. Look it up." My legs felt weak. I grabbed the counter for support. "You wouldn't dare use that against me." "I don't want to," he said, and for a second I heard pain crack through his controlled facade. "But I'm done letting you twist reality. Done letting you paint me as the villain in your story. You crossed a line tonight, Alexis. You didn't just embarrass me, you tried to destroy me. And for what? Because I wanted us to be responsible with money? Because I cared about our future?" "I hate you," I whispered, but the words sounded childish even to me. "I hate how you make me feel crazy when you're the one." "The one what? The one who's been faithful? The one who's been trying to build something real while you've been playing games? Listen to yourself. Really listen. Because this recording? This is who you really are. And maybe it's time everyone saw that. He turned and walked away, leaving me standing there in my $1,000 dress, mascara running down my face. I heard him grab his keys, heard the garage door open. I wanted to run after him, to snatch his phone, to beg him not to ruin everything. But I couldn't move. Because deep down, under all the whine and anger and justifications, I knew he was right. The recording had captured exactly who I was. Not the victim I'd been pretending to be, but someone else entirely. Someone I didn't want to face. A week after Eddie left, I got served with divorce papers at work. Right there in front of everyone, like some bad movie scene. I had to leave early, mascara running down my face, my coworkers pretending not to stare. That's when reality finally hit. This wasn't just another fight we'd get over. The recording from that night showed up in the divorce proceedings. Hearing my own voice, drunk and cruel, trying to manipulate the situation, it was like listening to a stranger. My lawyer winced through the whole thing. "Maybe we should consider a quick settlement," she suggested, not meeting my eyes. I tried damage control on social media, posting these long paragraphs about breaking free from financial abuse and reclaiming my power. But then Eddie's friends started commenting with receipts, screenshots of my hidden shopping sprees, pictures of me deliberately provoking him at parties, that awful recording. I had to shut down my Instagram after people started calling me a gaslighter in the comments. My parents weren't any help. Mom just sat there, shaking her head as she looked through my maxed-out credit card statements. "We didn't raise you to be this person, Alexis," she said. Dad wouldn't even look at me. They still let me move back into my old bedroom, but I could tell they were Team Eddie. That's when I got Bentley. He's this adorable French bulldog puppy I definitely couldn't afford. But whatever. The lady at the rescue gave me this weird look when I put him on my credit card, but I needed something good in my life. Everyone was acting like I was this terrible person, but Bentley looked at me like I was his whole world. I started posting pictures of me and my new man. You know, those cute dog mom quotes and filtered photos of us cuddling. Caption them with stuff like, "Who needs a husband when you have unconditional love?" and "Traded rings for paws." Some of my friends from before the marriage liked them, but most people could see through it. Meanwhile, Eddie was thriving. His shop was doing better than ever. Turns out lots of guys prefer bringing their cars to someone who isn't married to a psycho. Their words, not mine. I drove by one day and saw him laughing with some customer. He looked lighter, like he dropped a weight I hadn't realized I'd been. The worst part? He started dating this financial advisor named Rachel. She looks like she gets all her clothes from Ann Taylor Loft and probably has a perfect credit score. I found out through Sarah, who still answers my texts sometimes out of pity. Apparently, Rachel helps other women with financial literacy, or whatever. Like, could he be any more obvious about trying to replace me with my complete opposite? I maxed out another card buying Bentley designer accessories. My parents watched me unpack this Gucci dog carrier with these looks of total disappointment. But they don't get it. When you're a dog mom, you have to maintain a certain image. Besides, Bentley deserved nice things. He was the only one who didn't judge me. My lawyer keeps trying to get me to focus on the settlement, but I'm more concerned about building my new brand as this empowered single dog mom. I even started a TikTok account, Living My Best Life with Bentley. It only has like 200 followers, but it's growing. Sure, some people leave comments about how I'm obviously trying to cope with my failed marriage, but what do they know? The bankruptcy proceedings are a mess. Turns out when you hide credit cards from your husband and max them all out, it doesn't look great to the court. I had to sell most of my designer stuff, except for that red dress. I keep it in the back of my closet like some twisted souvenir. Last week, I created a new dating profile. Put up my best pictures with Bentley, wrote this whole thing about being a strong, independent woman who knows her worth. I made sure to mention I'm a dog mom in the first line. That way guys know I come as a package deal. My therapist, court-mandated by the way, says I'm not ready to date, but what does she know? Sometimes, late at night when Bentley's snoring in his monogram dog bed, I think about that dinner. About how I could have just talked to Eddie instead of trying to hurt him. About how maybe he wasn't controlling. Maybe he just saw the train wreck coming before I did. But those thoughts don't last long. It's easier to post another filtered photo with Bentley, caption it something about healing and growth, and pretend I'm living my best life. Yesterday, I drove past Eddie's shop again. Saw him and Rachel leaving together, looking like some perfect couple from a financial planning commercial. She was wearing sensible shoes and carrying a practical handbag that probably cost less than Bentley's winter wardrobe. They looked happy, really happy. The kind of happy I thought was boring when I had it. But whatever. I've got Bentley now, and he's better than any husband. Sure, I'm living in my childhood bedroom at 32, working through bankruptcy, and spending money I don't have on dog accessories. But at least no one's controlling me anymore. At least I'm free to be myself, even if I'm not totally sure who that is without the shopping and the drama and the games. Maybe someday I'll meet someone who appreciates me for who I am. Someone who won't try to change me or make me stick to a budget or care about building a future. Until then, I've got my fur baby and my TikTok followers, and this story I tell myself about being the victim in all this. It's not much, but it's better than admitting the truth, that maybe, just maybe, I was the one who destroyed everything good in my life.